The billionaire pretended to be asleep to test the black maid's son and froze at what the boy did. Billionaire Thomas Mitchell sat motionless in his leather armchair, his breathing steady and shallow, eyelids lowered as if he had drifted into a late afternoon nap. Behind him, the safe stood wide open, exposing thick stacks of bills, mixed denominations piled like a wall of green and red bricks. Everything had been staged with meticulous detail, the dimmed lights reflecting on the money's edges, the curtains drawn halfway, even the cold coffee cup tilted at the corner of the desk, all to set the stage for temptation in its rawest form. Thomas had planned this moment ever since a former partner embezzled $3 million, taking with it a piece of his faith in people. The test was simple, he thought. Leave the safe open, pretend to sleep, and see, when money lies bare, who still keeps their integrity. The door creaked open softly. Diana Jefferson, the night janitor, stepped in with her 6-year-old son, Jaden. The boy wore tiny pink gloves, Diana's gift to make him feel like he was working with Mom during summer break. "Good evening, Mr. Mitchell," Diana whispered with a nod, careful not to disturb the sleeping boss. She pushed her cart and quietly began with the row of bookshelves. Jaden's gaze wandered around the wide office until it landed on the thin strip of light glinting off the cracked open safe. From beneath his lashes, Thomas watched. He didn't exactly want the child to stumble, but he wanted the truth about human nature, about the pull of greed, about dignity when no one is watching. He had grown tired of adults' excuses. Tonight, he wanted to see instinct. Jaden approached. He stopped before the bundles of cash, frowning as though he were looking at a box of crayons shuffled out of order. There was no sneaky hesitation, his clear eyes fixed only on the mess. His small hands, snug in the pink gloves, gently lifted the stacks, sorted denominations, straightened the edges and arranged them neatly. Gestures of a little accountant trained by his mother to organize coins at home. "Mom," Jaden whispered, "Mr. Thomas's money is messy. I'll fix it like you taught me to do with ours." Diana spun around, startled. "Jaden, don't touch your boss's things." "But he won't like it messy," Jaden mumbled, taking nothing, only straightening the stacks before withdrawing his hands, then clasping them behind his back, waiting for his mother's direction. The way he hovered close enough to care, yet without claiming anything, sent a warmth through Thomas's chest he thought long dead. Diana placed a hand on her son's shoulder. "Thank you for not taking what isn't yours. Next time, just tell me and let me handle it." She gave a slight bow toward the armchair, a silent apology to her boss if he had glimpsed the scene. But the boss still slept, his breath steady. Behind his eyelids, Thomas wrestled with the old suspicion of a man once betrayed and the calm of one who longs to believe. The boy had the chance, had been right at the open safe, had touched the money, yet only to set it straight. No hiding, no sneaking, no performance, simply order restored, spoken aloud to his mother as if it were natural. A moral structure quiet yet solid as steel. Jaden returned to the desk corner, pulled out his workbook, but occasionally glanced toward the safe like a guardian of something sacred. Diana kept cleaning, reminding him now and then, "Other people's belongings are sacred. We don't take, we don't play, we just keep them neat so they'll be pleased." The phrase Thomas had heard before on security audio, recordings he himself had ordered throughout headquarters to maintain standards. Who would have thought tonight they would capture something far more valuable, proof of honesty. The door closed, the rolling cartwheels faded away. Thomas opened his eyes fully, rose, and walked to the safe. The bills were stacked flat, denominations in precise order, like a treasurer's handbook. He shut the safe, turned the dial, and the click echoed sharp. He felt like laughing, but didn't. The sound would be too small compared to the surge swelling in his chest. Hope. He sat at his desk, opened his laptop, and typed a short email to Sandra Miller, head of HR. Preserve all camera footage from tonight's night shift. Do not delete anything. Also, schedule audio system maintenance next week. TM. The words were neutral, like a technical note, but Sandra, who had handled many sensitive matters, would recognize the signal. Before shutting down, Thomas flagged Diana Jefferson's HR file, proposal for pay grade adjustment under consistent performance. He disliked the word bonus, he preferred fairness. Yet he knew fairness in business wasn't only about numbers. It was the climate, where a mother raising her child alone wasn't invisible, and where a boy could do homework under the light of a safe place. Above him, the fluorescent bulb buzzed faintly, like something being set back into order. Thomas glanced once more at the camera feed. Diana pulling Jaden close, both bowing their heads before the founder's portrait in the hall. A strange but beautiful ritual of respect for the workplace. He exhaled, for the first time feeling tired in a good way. He didn't yet know that one small act by a pink-gloved boy would trigger a chain of justice. From the cameras, Richard Blackwood, the powerful vice president, had once proudly approved. To HR and independent review, then to the board and the media. But the seed had been planted. And when a seed of integrity falls on the soil of determined power, it can break through even the concrete of discriminatory habit. That night, before leaving the office, Thomas looked into the mirror. The face of a 45-year-old man stared back, no longer cold as always. He told himself, if justice can begin with how a child handles money, then I, the one in power, must give that justice its path. In the weeks that followed, Thomas did not rush. He observed like a clinician. Diana's morning shift at the clinic, her night shift at Mitchell Enterprises, Jaden always by her side, doing homework in the corner, sometimes asking for little tasks to stay awake, sorting papers, wiping desk edges, changing trash bags. Every time his hand touched something, Diana repeated her moral mantra. Other people's things are sacred. We don't take. We don't pry. If it's messy, we tidy it up to make them happy. That simple phrase, caught again and again by cameras and mics, reached Thomas's ears like a healing refrain. Quietly, he instructed HR to adjust Diana's pay grade. The reason code in the system was dry as desert sand. Adjustment by band. Thomas knew the best gratitude was to fix the payslip, but protecting dignity mattered more. He told Sandra Miller, keep everything as normal as possible. Don't make her a spotlight. But normal was a luxury in a system where some lived off abnormal. Richard Blackwood, 50, vice president of operations, his suit sharp as a razor, walked into the quarterly budget meeting with a slick smile. Skimming the expense sheet, he tapped his pen. Why are we spending more on janitorial services? And why did one person in that group get a raise? Thomas capped his pen. Diana Jefferson has been doing excellent work. Richard tilted his chin, dropped a grating remark. You need to remember those people. Give them a dime and they'll demand the whole safe. It's their nature. The room cooled a few degrees. Some board members exchanged glances, lips pressed tight. Everyone heard the naked prejudice layered in. But Richard was a Blackwood. Their family held shares, their history tangled into the company's roots like an old tree. No one touched that trunk easily. That evening, the hallway was empty as a tunnel. Diana pushed her cart, Jaden close beside her. Richard appeared out of thin air. Listen, he blocked the way, voice of a boss to a subordinate. I know you're being paid more than you deserve. I don't care what you did to get that, but stop it. And don't bring the kid here. This isn't a daycare." Jaden froze. His pink gloves balled into a soft fist. Diana stood tall. "Sir, I'm just doing my job." Richard smirked. "Your job is to clean and stay invisible. Period." Upstairs, Thomas watched it all through the hallway camera. The moment the word invisible fell from Richard's mouth, a pure anger surged in him. Not loud, but steady, like water beginning to wear down stone. If his company culture taught a child that his mother was invisible, then something was rotten at its core. He rewound the footage 3 times, parsing each nasal tone, each power-soaked glance. The next morning, Thomas called Marcus Chen, a former FBI investigator, now corporate probe specialist. "Marcus, I need you for a case of power abuse with a stench of systemic bias." On the other end, Marcus's voice was low and crisp. "Name?" "Richard Blackwood." "Easier than taking candy from a kid." Marcus clicked his tongue, then serious. "But the evidence must be bulletproof." Meanwhile, Richard made his move. He stormed into HR, tossing a self-written charge sheet onto Sandra's desk. Diana repeatedly arrives late, violates regulations. The kid causes disruption. Sandra looked up. "Her time records are perfect for 2 years, sir." "Any proof?" "Records can be changed," Richard cut in. "I'm VP. My word is enough." The whole exchange went straight into the mic. Part of the surveillance system Richard himself had once signed off to increase efficiency. Thomas saved it, time-stamped, sent it to Marcus. Step 1, preserve evidence. Marcus replied with a folder in the internal cloud. 3 labor suits from Richard's past 2 companies, all quietly settled. 8 Black Latino employees pushed until they quit. Screenshots from a private chat group. Keep them in their place. Shut them down early. Marcus's note. Hashed for timestamp lock. Thursday afternoon, Sandra knocked on Thomas's office. "I'm uncomfortable with the phrase, 'people like her,' in Mr. Blackwood's email," she said, laying down a printout and time logs. Thomas nodded. "Open an internal investigation. Standard procedure, record statements, cross-check data, bring in witnesses if available. I'll back it." By doing so, he legalized the entire next path, not just right, but by the book. Friday night, the passive spark turned active. Richard called his father, Edward Blackwood, ex-chairman, with a Rolodex longer than an industry directory. "Dad, we talked that night. The Black Maid is becoming a problem. I need someone to stir legal trouble for her. Theft suspicion, fuzzy paperwork, so she quits herself." Edward sighed. "Richard, she's just a janitor." Richard scoffed. "Let people like that get comfortable. They'll start demanding rights they don't deserve. Handle it before others like her copy." Each word dropped into the recorder like rivets into a ship's hull. Prejudice and coercion, self-confessed. Thomas stared out at the city through the glass, a chill running his spine. Not fear, but clarity. This was no longer personal sparring. This was a pattern. He texted Marcus. Step 2. Boost mics in hallways, garage, elevators. Cover with maintenance notice. Marcus replied, "Done." Also, tracking unusual purchase orders. He'll plant something. If it were me, I'd pick an item like a watch. Thomas played chess, letting his opponent move first, setting cameras for multiple angles, security teams neutral, HR logs airtight. He penciled backup appointments with 3 trusted journalists, Jennifer Walsh, Channel 7, Ethan Brooks, local paper, Nina Patel, independent, investigative blog, but didn't summon them yet. "Only when he exposes himself," he told his aide, "do we flip the switch." In the garage, Jaden asked his mother, "Mom, why was that man mean to you?" Diana paused, stroked his hair. Some people aren't happy, so they try to drag others down with them. What we do is hold ourselves. Hold the truth. That night, Jaden taped a handwritten note to the fridge. Don't take what isn't yours. If messy, tidy it up. Those childlike lines Thomas would later see in a photo Sandra snapped during a welfare visit, and realize he could not let a boy grow up in a culture of invisibility. Near midnight, Thomas's phone buzzed. Marcus sent a screenshot, a $15,000 Rolex Submariner order, billed to a secondary card under Richard Blackwood's name. Caption: Step 3. Wait for him to set the trap, then flip the light. Thomas looked up at the ceiling, the hum of the AC ticking like a countdown. The game had begun. And this time, justice would not come in a burst of rage, but in a flawless dossier. Rooted in the night, a pink-gloved child straightened stacks of money in what seemed like an ordinary evening. Thursday morning, Sandra Miller closed the door behind her as she entered Thomas's office. In her hands was a gray file folder, the edges of the papers rasping against each other like metal. "Mr. Mitchell, I am formally requesting the opening of an internal investigation," Sandra said slowly. "Mr. Blackwood is pressuring for the dismissal of Diana Jefferson without grounds. In his emails and conversations, he used the phrase, 'people like her,' a clear implication of discrimination." Thomas nodded calmly. "Do everything by procedure. Record his words precisely, cross-check the time logs, encrypt all access records. You'll have my full backing." When Sandra left, Thomas pulled up a schematic on his screen, the surveillance map of the entire floor. Camera points, mics, entryways, corridors. He marked in red the places Richard often visited to flex power. The elevator corner, the end of Hall B, the basement garage. His message to Marcus Chen was just one line: boost mics at the 3 red spots, public cover reason, routine maintenance, ensure no leaks. Friday night, the call fell onto tape like a nail dropping onto steel. Richard phoned his father, Edward Blackwood, former chairman, whose web of connections was like an old maze. Richard's voice hissed through clenched teeth. "Dad, the girl, no, the black kid on janitorial duty is becoming a problem. I need legal trouble created for his mother, theft suspicion, faulty paperwork, so she quits." On the other end, Edward sighed. "She's just a janitor, Richard." Richard sneered. "If you let people like that get comfortable, soon they'll start demanding something they call rights." Each word landed on the hard drive like rivets, binding prejudice to coercion. Thomas listened from start to finish, no skipping, letting the chill run down his spine, then forwarded the file to Marcus. The reply came swiftly, an encrypted folder containing screenshots from private chat groups where Richard mocked Black and Latino staff with degrading language, a hashed, time-stamped evidence file, and a summary of 3 labor suits at his previous 2 companies, all quietly settled. 15-year pattern, Marcus noted. Systematic harassment until the victim resigns. Thomas said nothing. He opened another Excel sheet. Column A, timeline. Column B, behavior. Column C, legal, company morals clause. Column D, liability chain. Richard's actions had just triggered an ultimate clause the board had voted in after the embezzlement scandal. The bad actor clause, allowing the forced buyback of any Blackwood shares if that person inflicted serious harm on the company's reputation and compliance. The next day, Sandra completed a memo, quoting verbatim, "people like her," attaching Diana's flawless 2-year time logs, plus Richard's blunt email orders, "My word is enough," all stamped and digitally signed. Thomas read each page carefully, then folded it shut. Activate the ethics committee. I'll convene the board when the hour comes. Meanwhile, Marcus tracked purchases. A ping surfaced. A $15,000 Rolex Submariner order, paid with a secondary card under Richard Blackwood's name. The store camera caught him in dark glasses, paper bag in hand. Bait bought, waiting for the drop, Marcus texted, half jest, all ice. Thomas began setting the stage. On the top floor, a temporary control room sprang up. 4 high-resolution screens, an audio mixer, a live image server, wireless headsets linking Thomas, Marcus, the neutralized security team, pulled out from Richard's orbit, and Sandra in HR. In parallel, he messaged 3 journalists: Jennifer Walsh, Channel 7, Ethan Brooks, local paper, Nina Patel, independent investigative blog. 8 p.m. tonight. There's a story you won't want to miss. Bring compact gear, use the back entrance, wait for signal. Dusk fell across the glass roof of Mitchell Enterprises. Office lights clicked off one by one, leaving only a thin strip of brightness on the floor where Diana worked. Jaden opened his workbook, held out his hand asking for a small task so I don't get sleepy, labeling dusted file boxes. Diana smiled. This job suits you. 8 p.m. Richard's shadow flickered across the ceiling camera, quick but not unseen. He entered the supply cart area, glanced around. His watch-wearing hand slipped into the bin between 2 clean trash bags, placed a velvet box, pushed it deep. Angle 1, ceiling cam, captured the wide shot. Angle 2, opposite wall, caught his face clear. Angle 3, side shelf, locked in the furtive glance to ensure no one was watching. Bait planted. Marcus's voice came steady through the headset. Thomas checked his watch, 8:02. He stayed still. The legal rationale was clear. Prove not just the item, but intent and causal link. The tape had to be long enough to convince anyone. 8:20. Richard returned with 2 guards. He smirked, shoulders tilting like a B-movie cop. Routine inspection. He yanked the cart, slipped his hand into the exact bin. Oh, interesting. He opened the velvet box, flashing the Rolex, gleaming like gaudy evidence. Diana Jefferson, this is a $15,000 Rolex. It disappeared from Mr. Mitchell's office yesterday. Diana froze, her hand instinctively resting on Jaden's shoulder. I've never seen it. Of course. Richard curled his lip. It just grew into your cart. He signaled the guards. Call the police. Report theft under investigation. One had already pulled out his phone, thumb sliding toward the call button. Upstairs, Thomas exhaled and tapped the master switch. The big screen lit up, all camera angles fused into a single mosaic. He glanced at Marcus. Marcus nodded. Time to flip the light. Thomas walked out of the control room, a straight line, the elevator doors opening slowly. As the glass door to Diana's workspace slid aside for him, everything was in place. Marcus Chen a step behind him, and the 3 journalists, Jennifer, Ethan, Nina, sliding in like shadows. Richard's face slackened for a beat, then tightened. Richard. Thomas's voice was calm, dull like a blunt knife. No blood, but it cut. I think you should hang up the phone. The moment went glass hard. The guard froze the call. Richard forced a professional smile. Perfect timing, Thomas. We just caught her. Caught me. Thomas tilted his head, cutting him off. I've worn an Apple Watch for 5 years. I've never owned a Rolex. Richard's eyes dropped, like someone had flipped a switch. And that was the moment the curtain began to rise. The air froze in a single heartbeat. Jennifer Walsh lifted her camera, Ethan pressed rec, Nina leaned her mic closer. Marcus Chen raised his tablet. "Angle 1, he said, tapping. The video appeared, clear as daylight. Richard bending over the cart bin, planting the velvet box. "Angle 2. Richard's face filled the frame, his watch flashing at the wrist. "Angle 3. From the cabinet side, a close-up of him checking his surroundings before shoving the box deeper. Marcus swiped again. "And angle 4, the store camera at 10:12 this morning." The image came up. Richard, in dark glasses, Rolex shopping bag in hand, signing the receipt. "Are you going to ramble about privacy now, Richard?" Thomas asked, voice light as air. "The surveillance policy you signed off on is explicit. No expectation of privacy in work areas. And the moment you planted the bait, you stepped out of any gray zone." Richard swallowed hard. "This is fabricated." "What about your call with your father?" Marcus tapped another button. Edward Blackwood's voice echoed from the speaker. "Create legal trouble, theft suspicion, make her quit." A timestamp blinked in the corner. "And here are screenshots from the private chat groups," Marcus continued, swiping through dry but venomous lines. "Keep them in their place, hit them early." He didn't read aloud the ugliest racial slurs. The journalists saw. The cameras rolled. Below each image, hash codes and storage sources. Richard thrashed, "I'll sue! This is intrusion!" Thomas stopped him with a gesture. "You have that right. And so does the board. They've just voted under the bad actor clause, a forced buyback of all Blackwood family shares involved, because your conduct has caused severe damage to the company's integrity and reputation. 20 minutes ago, the resolution passed." "You can't!" Richard's face drained pale. "Oh, I can," Thomas said, placing the signed resolution on the table, time-stamped and certified. "And to preserve evidence, the accounts in your name have been temporarily frozen under legal counsel's directive to our partner bank." One guard swallowed, stepping back. The other looked at Diana and Jaden as if waking from a nightmare. Diana tightened her grip on her son. Jaden looked at Thomas, eyes wide but not afraid, because the fear had already been named. "Mr. Blackwood," Jennifer spoke up, Channel 7 press badge hanging from her neck. "Do you have anything to say in response to evidence of systemic discrimination and a staged setup against a black janitor and her child?" Richard's eyes darted for an exit. The door was shut. Marcus blocked it. Ethan and Nina stood on either side. "Thomas, let's handle this like gentlemen." Richard lowered his voice. "My family has made substantial investments." "Yes," Thomas nodded. "Until 20 minutes ago." He tilted his head slightly toward the hall. Sandra Miller appeared, placing the internal investigation report on the table. Time logs, the phrase, "people like her," quoted verbatim. Richard's email pressuring HR to take my word instead of evidence, and a formally initiated investigation record. Every page gleamed like glass. Sirens wailed closer, then stopped. Detective Avery Harris stepped in, warrant in hand, reading it aloud. "Richard Blackwood, you are under arrest for evidence tampering, harassment, discrimination, and defamation." The clink of handcuffs was the sound of a legal door closing shut. Richard still tried to snarl at Diana. "You'll regret this." "Unlikely," Marcus replied evenly. "This morning, the files reached every major newsroom. Your father's already called offices asking to have his name scrubbed from contact lists. Your Rolex purchase is in the inbox of the Industry Ethics Committee." Nina swung her camera toward Diana. "Miss Jefferson, how do you feel?" Diana looked at Jaden, then at Thomas. Grateful that someone chose to stand up when ignoring would have been easier. and because tonight my son learned that truth has protectors." Thomas smiled, kneeling to Jaden's eye level. "Jaden, bad men won't scare your mother anymore. You did the right thing even when no one was watching. That's the way adults should learn from." Jaden nodded, still clutching his pink gloves, eyes glowing like a bulb just switched on. As Richard was led away, the room fell silent. No applause. Justice isn't theater, it's work. Thomas turned to Sandra. "Starting tomorrow, audit all D&I policies. Mandatory bias training for all mid-level managers and above. Form a task force to review past complaints." He looked at Diana. "I want to discuss a career path. Your record is strong. Your experience and cultural impact here are valuable. Formalize credentials if needed. The company will sponsor." Diana pressed her lips, holding back tears. "Thank you, but all I want is a safe place for my son to learn." Thomas nodded. "He will have it. Employee Children's Scholarship Fund, launched this quarter. And I want a fair chance program for candidates shut out by bias. The program will bear Jaden's name, to remind us that what's right begins with something small." Jennifer lowered her camera, exhaling. "Tonight, viewers will see a story that needs no embellishment." Thomas pointed softly toward the safe in the corner, now locked tight. "Tell them this. A little boy straightened messy stacks of money. The rest is adults learning how to straighten the system." Night settled over Mitchell Enterprises, gentler than before. Jaden ran to his desk, pulled from his backpack a drawing, a wide-open safe, a boy with pink gloves, and a heart. He placed it on Thomas's desk, shyly. "I straightened the heart, too." Thomas laughed for the first time in months. A real laugh. He knew the fight wasn't over. Tomorrow would bring the board, the press, litigation. But the foundation was set. Evidence solid, process clean, public ready. And above all, there was a new compass. The pink gloves that had pointed the way in a room where money once tested men's souls. Outside the window, the city glittered like a vast circuit board. Thomas told himself, "Tomorrow, I'll walk the tightrope between law, governance, and public opinion. But tonight, this is enough." A boy straightened the stacks of money. "My work is to straighten the company." Dawn spilled through the green glass of Mitchell Enterprises as Thomas Mitchell entered the grand boardroom. On the main screen was the evidence timeline. From the moment Richard Blackwood purchased the Rolex, to the video of him planting it in the janitorial cart, to the recording of his call with Edward Blackwood, along with screenshots of the private chat groups stamped with hash codes and timestamps. Sandra Miller, HR, had laid out the full internal investigation file. Marcus Chen had his laptop ready, a 3-minute compilation clip queued, concise enough to hit the gut, precise enough to establish every legal element. "Begin," Thomas said. The lights dimmed, the clip played. No one spoke. When the screen went black, the general counsel leaned back. "From a corporate perspective, this is a violation of the ultimate ethics provision, the bad actor clause, added after the embezzlement scandal. Any shareholder or affiliate whose conduct causes serious harm to the company's reputation and compliance may be subjected to a forced buyback of their shares, at closing price minus the penalty factor in the annex. From a criminal standpoint, we have already handed the originals to the police. From here, the public prosecution and civil actions will proceed in parallel." The CFO pulled up a slide. Funding for the forced buyback had already been allocated from idle cash flow plus unused credit lines. Dilution impact is negligible. The reputational risk of delay is far greater. A female board member asked, "What about the Blackwood family?" Thomas answered bluntly, "They've been notified of the resolution. The door remains open for procedural dialogue, but not for ethical bargaining. He shifted to communication strategy. We are not staging a witch hunt. We tell the truth with documents and process. Press release goes out at 5 p.m. Confirmation of termination for cause cooperation with authorities, protection of whistleblowers and the reform steps, culture audit, mandatory anti-bias training, anonymous whistleblower hotline managed by a third party. At the same time, we'll announce the Employee Children's Scholarship Fund and the Fair Chance Program, blind review hiring, mentorship for minority applicants. Marcus added, My team will preserve evidence, maintain metadata, regular checksums, chain of custody, no procedural gaps. Thomas pressed once. Last night wasn't theater. It was work, and today the work continues. Mid-meeting, Thomas's phone buzzed. Edward Blackwood. He put it on speaker. Thomas, Edward's voice rasped. We're old men. Let's not tarnish each other's names. My name stays clean if I keep this company clean, Thomas said calmly. Edward sighed. My family has been tied to this enterprise since the beginning. And, for that reason, Thomas replied slowly, you understand the name on the building doesn't absolve behavior beneath it. The buyback will proceed per charter. I suggest cooperation to preserve what value remains for your family. Silence stretched on the line. Then Edward hung up, a graceful end to a bygone era. 10 a.m. The entire company received an email from Thomas. Confirmation of the incident, emphasis on zero tolerance for discrimination and abuse of power. Anonymous mailbox and hotline operated by external counsel opened. Mandatory management training, bias recognition, diverse team leadership, evidence-based discipline process. Commitment. Anyone who has been treated as invisible will be named and heard. Sandra drafted a separate note for the janitorial team in plain language. The night shift is not the dark half. It is the other half of the company. She proposed flexible arrangements so parents could occasionally bring children, with a secure supervised area equipped with proper cameras. 11:30 a.m. Thomas met Diana and Jaden in a small break room. The boy clutched his pink gloves, eyes fixed on a new poster on the wall. No one will be called invisible. Thomas crouched to Jaden's level. You okay? Yes, sir, Jaden whispered. I wrote 3 lines on the fridge. Don't take what isn't yours. If it's messy, tidy it. Tell the truth even if no one listens. Diana smiled faintly. My son is full of principles. Thomas turned to her. Last night I mentioned a career path. I want to be clear. HR needs leadership that knows the real people on every floor. I want to sponsor you to finish your degree, move you onto a management track. Not charity, recognition of the value you've built. Diana squeezed her son's hand. All I want is a safe place for Jaden to learn. Thomas nodded. We're launching the Employee Children's Scholarship Fund this quarter. Jaden will be its first scholar, not because of last night, but because his integrity has been on our cameras for 2 years. Jaden blushed. I just wanted the stacks to look neat. Exactly, Thomas smiled. And sometimes straightening a few stacks of bills is the lesson adults need to straighten an entire system. 2 p.m. Legal finished the letter to partner banks. Request to freeze, hold transactions linked to Richard's accounts within the company's payment ecosystem, to preserve evidence, not a court order but sufficient for interim suspension. In parallel, preservation orders went to email and internal chat providers. 4 p.m. rehearsal for the press conference. Thomas to speak 3 minutes, Sandra 2 on HR procedure, Marcus 2 on evidence chain, then Q&A. They agreed not to mention Jaden by name, only a young boy, to protect privacy. 5 p.m. The press release went out. Channel 7, Jennifer Walsh, aired a primetime special with blurred footage of the janitor and her son, but sharp, undeniable shots of Richard's hand planting the velvet box. The local paper's homepage ran the headline, "From Open Safe to Boardroom. One Night Cleaned Corporate Culture." The pinned top comment, "Thank you for using cameras to protect the vulnerable, not intimidate them." Night fell. Thomas stood alone in the empty boardroom. On the screen stretched a long reform checklist: training, audits, reporting channels, mentoring, blind recruitment, quarterly diversity metrics, public accountability. He circled one line in the middle: "No one will be called invisible." Tomorrow the work would continue, but today the order had shifted. The trap setter ensnared by due process, the unseen placed at the center, and a boy who straightened bills had become the compass for an entire company. 6 months passed like the building of a massive work site. Mitchell Enterprises didn't just patch cracks. They poured new concrete into the entire cultural foundation. In the lobby, right behind reception, a digital board displayed quarterly transparency metrics: percentage of blind review hiring across core departments, diversity ratios at the management level, number of hotline reports and resolution rates within 30 days, psychological safety index from anonymous surveys. Sandra Miller led the D&I task force, launching the Fair Chance program, applications stripped of names, photos, and schools, showcasing only skills and work samples. Interviews followed standardized scoring rubrics. Every applicant passing the first round was paired with a mentor from a different department to avoid direct bias. Marcus Chen helped design the third-party whistleblower system, ensuring chain of custody, anonymity, and zero retaliation. Diana Jefferson, the woman who once pushed a janitorial cart on the night shift, now walked into boardrooms as the new director of HR after the company sponsored her accelerated degree program. Her first presentation opened with a digitized drawing by Jaden, a safe and a heart. She said, "Human resources isn't about paperwork, it's about moral order. We cannot put KPIs above dignity." Thomas sat quietly in the back row, nodding. True reforms only matter if they reach the roots. Here, the roots had taken hold. The Employee Children's Scholarship Fund had awarded its first round. Jaden Jefferson was the inaugural recipient, enrolling in a private school with a strong STEM program, complete with a late bus to match his mother's shift schedule. At 7 years old, Jaden proudly flashed his new library badge, saying his favorite class was debate, where kids argued over what to do when you see someone treated unfairly. He told his mom, "I want to be a lawyer. I'll protect people who tell the truth." Fair Chance reported results. In 6 months, over 200 families benefited directly or indirectly. Relatives hired into office roles via blind review, current staff receiving mentors, old complaints reopened and resolved. The company received an award from an independent workplace equity association. Industry press called Mitchell Enterprises the new benchmark for ethics-driven HR policy. On television, Channel 7 aired an extended feature with a clip of Thomas, Jaden, unnamed. "A boy taught me that straightening small things is the only way to straighten big things. The rest is on us adults." The video spread across the internal network, shared not for PR but because employees saw themselves in it, especially those who once worked the night shift. Legally, the case against Richard Blackwood moved faster than anyone expected, thanks to clean digital evidence and a tight chain of custody. His lawyers negotiated partial guilty pleas to reduce sentencing. The result? A mix of jail time and probation, plus a ban from holding managerial roles in the industry for years. The Blackwood family completed the forced share transfer under board resolution. Markets stabilized, with some analysts even upgrading Mitchell for strong reputational risk management. At a town hall, someone asked, "Didn't we go too far by bringing journalists in?" Thomas answered directly, "When internal processes function but historical power ties risk-bending results, sunlight is the best disinfectant. Transparency is not humiliation, it's the shelter of truth." Sandra added, "Anyone afraid of transparency should not hold power." In her new role, Diana signed her first order: internal scholarships for employees to finish unfinished degrees. She remembered the hallway night she was called invisible. Now, every signature felt like restoring sight to those once blurred out. One late afternoon, Jaden toddled into Thomas's office with a child access permit. "Mr. Thomas, I have homework. Write 3 things that make a hero." Thomas smiled. "What did you write?" Jaden read aloud. 1. Don't take what isn't yours. 2. If it's messy, tidy it. 3. Tell the truth even if no one listens. Oh, and I added a 4th. Protect others when they're alone. Thomas said solemnly, "If every adult here followed those 4, this company wouldn't need another policy." The boy grinned, handing him a heart sticker. "Can I put this on your safe?" "Go ahead," Thomas said. "To remind me, the safe is just metal. The order inside it is human." Outside the door, Sandra watched quietly, whispering to Diana, "There are rare days that give HR its true meaning." Diana smiled, eyes moist. "Every day can, if we never let anyone be invisible." By quarter's end, the lobby board read, "Fair chance. 212 families impacted." Below it, a small line Thomas requested, "Thanks to a boy who straightened the stacks of money." People paused to read, most leaving with a smile. Not because of money, but because they could see themselves and each other more clearly. In the Q2 board minutes, a new metric appeared, the Invisibility Index, measuring how many employees felt their voices went unheard. Target, reduced by 50% in 12 months. Not everything was smooth. Some departments resisted, some managers complained of process fatigue. But discipline and steady leadership did what was necessary, pressed forward. On the quarter's final night, Thomas left late. Passing the storage room, he saw an old safe awaiting disposal. On it, Jaden's heart sticker glowed under yellow light. Thomas laid a hand on the cold steel, smiling to himself. A safe could symbolize temptation or order. He chose the latter, and chose to walk with those who made the same choice. The next morning, an email from CNN would arrive, inviting Thomas to speak on justice leadership after crisis. But that was tomorrow's story. Tonight, 6 months was enough to say, reform was no longer a promise. It had taken root. And at the root stood a boy with pink gloves, still caring enough to straighten the smallest things, so adults wouldn't forget the greatest ones. The email from CNN arrived exactly as expected. The subject line simple. Feature, Justice by Design at Mitchell Enterprises. Michael Torres, one of the network's lead journalists, proposed a long-form interview with a panel discussion featuring 2 independent guests, a labor lawyer and a business ethics professor. Thomas set one condition: no mention of Jaden's name and no shots of his face. CNN agreed. The shoot took place in a mobile studio set up right in Mitchell Enterprises' lobby. Sandra Miller ran through the key points. Clarify the difference between lawful surveillance, policy published, clear signage, workplace zones, and invasion of privacy, personal areas, no notice. Emphasize the chain of custody of evidence. Avoid heroizing individuals. Marcus Chen double-checked the metadata of the clips CNN planned to air, ensuring no sensitive data leaked. The lights came on. Michael opened sharply. Viewers probably loved the Rolex reversal scene. 4 camera angles, reporters on site, police arriving right on cue. But beyond the spectacle, there are 3 tough questions. 1. Did you set a trap? 2. You once left a safe open to test a child. Was that ethical leadership? 3. Is your company so dependent on cameras that it has lost faith in people? Thomas didn't dodge. Question 1. I didn't set a trap. I documented a crime someone else chose to commit. If I intervened too early, we might not have had enough proof to protect the victim against dirty power. Question 2. The open safe. I regret it. At that time, my trust was broken by an embezzlement, and I did something wrong. I tested a child's morality. I apologized to his mother, and from now on, we forbid all forms of ethics testing like that. Question 3. Cameras are tools. Trust is culture plus process. Without culture, cameras become whips. We've now added safeguards, an internal tech ethics committee with staff, HR, and legal representatives to assess risks on every surveillance change. The labor lawyer interjected, "Do you think bringing journalists into the scene was over the line?" Thomas, when internal processes run inside a power ecosystem that can bend results, sunlight is the best disinfectant. We protected victim identity, blurred the child, and only publicized conduct documented lawfully. The business ethics professor nodded. What matters is that you turned anger into justice infrastructure, scholarships, blind hiring, the invisibility index. Many stop at firing one person. Few change the system. Michael turned to Sandra. From HR's perspective, what was the hardest part? Sandra replied, holding the line between the victim's pain and the organization's rules. If we only comfort, nothing changes. If we only enforce rules, we lose people. Our lesson: put victims at the center and follow procedures as if the court were watching, because sooner or later, society is watching. The program aired in prime time. The response was massive. A flood of anonymous emails poured into the hotline. Thank yous, but also reports of smaller abuses ignored for years. Sandra created a rapid response unit, promising 30-day resolution on each case. Marcus treated chain of custody like a laboratory. Thomas sent an internal note. If you've ever been called invisible, this is your turn. In court, Richard Blackwood's preliminary hearing drew heavy media. His lawyers shifted strategy, partial admission to evidence, tampering, and defamation, pleading psychological context. The prosecution laid out the file: multi-angle video, recorded call with Edward, chat screenshots, hashes, custody logs. The judge nodded. A chain of custody intact, no gaps. Inside the company, a manager raised a counterpoint at a town hall. Aren't we virtue signaling? Thomas answered bluntly, if we only talk without measuring, that's virtue signaling. We publish data quarterly, open to scrutiny. Transparency isn't a cover, it's a commitment. Cautious investors called, asking if the Blackwood share buyback might trigger disputes. The general counsel explained the charter and the bad actor clause. The CFO showed dilution was minimal, but credibility had risen. An ESG rating agency sent a letter upgrading Mitchell's governance score. Jaden returned to school with his company scholarship. For show and tell, he brought his drawing of a safe with a heart sticker. I learned 3 things, he read. Don't take what isn't yours. If it's messy, tidy it. Tell the truth even if no one listens. His teacher asked, Who taught you that? Jaden replied, My mom, and Mr. Thomas handled the grown-up part. On sentencing day, the court handed Richard a combined penalty. 18 months, 9 in custody, 9 on probation, fines, a 5-year ban from managerial roles in the industry, plus mandatory community service at a job assistance center. Edward did not appear. The family's lawyer only acknowledged the completed share transfer paperwork. That evening, Michael Torres texted Thomas, "Not every day do I see power held accountable by the very systems it built. And about that open safe test on a child, thank you for admitting wrong on camera." Thomas read it, nodded alone. In the new system, admitting wrong was the start of right. A week later, the company's Tech Ethics Committee voted on new surveillance principles. First, minimal necessity. 2, clear disclosure. 3-point bias risk assessment. 4th, appeals path for employees. 5th, independent annual audit. Sandra posted a sign in the lobby. "Cameras protect. They do not intimidate." When the lobby lights went dark, Thomas stood before the old safe awaiting disposal. Jaden's heart sticker still clung to it. He touched the steel gently and whispered, "No more tests for children." From now on, the adults test themselves. 3 years passed, leaving Mitchell Enterprises with a new grain in its wood, deep, clear, not glossy but enduring. The lobby's digital board refreshed each quarter. Invisibility index -52%. Fair chance, 612 families impacted. Whistleblower cases, 97% resolved within 30 days. The surveillance principles had become a module other companies requested to adopt. CNN ran another follow-up, while a business school filed Mitchell's story as a case study in Justice by Design. Diana Jefferson now held an MBA. The diploma hung in her office beside Jaden's digitized drawing. On her desk lay the expanded mentorship program and skill roadmaps for new managers. She knew her pen strokes carried weight in real lives: night shifts, dinner tables, tuition bills. Each time she signed, she remembered that hallway night. Now her signature felt like restoring vision to those once blurred out. Jaden turned 10. His birthday party was held in the company atrium, transformed into a family-safe space on weekends. A chocolate cake sat beside a cardboard safe model plastered with a heart sticker. Thomas held the microphone, standing before Jaden's friends and employees' families. "Jaden, Diana," Thomas said, voice warm but steady, "for 3 years you have changed my life in ways I can never repay. So, today, I'm announcing the Jaden Jefferson Education Fund, a 50-year trust providing college scholarships for Black youth and other underrepresented groups with academic merit and community contributions. At least 20 students a year, with clear criteria, independent board, and public reporting." The atrium clapped, not wildly but firmly, as a community that understood the weight of a long promise. Jaden hugged Thomas. "Thank you for believing in my mom when no one else did." Thomas bent close. "The truth is, you taught me to do the grown-up part." Next door, a screen played a montage. Jennifer Walsh's report on the Rolex night, excerpts from the CNN panel, and employees telling how Fair Chance had changed their lives. Ethan Brooks wrote the narration. "There is no single protagonist here, only roles and responsibility." Where was Richard Blackwood in this picture? People hadn't forgotten, but few still spoke of him. After finishing his jail term and probation, Richard tried to find work at a used car dealership. The manager Googled his name, saw the stories and clips. The answer? Sorry. His wife filed for divorce, assets split by court order. His 2 children petitioned to change their surname. In one anonymous interview, Richard said, "Society is too harsh." Commenters reminded him, "Plotting isn't a mistake. Slurs aren't jokes." The door shut like a safe, sealed, cold, and deserved. One evening, CNN's Michael Torres attended Jaden's birthday at Thomas's invitation. Sipping soda, he told Thomas, "It's rare when the end of a news story is the start of a mechanism." Thomas glanced at Jaden, laughing at the marble game corner. Mechanisms are how we remember small acts. The next day, Thomas flew to Harvard for a talk on leadership in ethical crisis. He told the story without embellishment. "That night I left the safe open. A bad decision. A boy didn't take anything except time to straighten the bills. I realized justice isn't a punch at villains. It's a net protecting the righteous. HR, legal, ethical oversight, and the light of public scrutiny. Let good people stand without needing superhuman courage." The hall rose, not with cheers but with nods, as if a stone had been lifted from their chests. The state government awarded Mitchell for contributions to workplace equity. Sandra received HR Professional of the Year from her association. She stepped to the podium, saying simply, "HR isn't a shield for leadership. HR is the long memory of dignity." And Diana? She became a sought-after voice at labor forums. At one conference, someone asked, "What keeps you from bitterness?" Diana smiled. "Jaden?" He straightened others' belongings out of respect, not fear. I chose to walk from that place. At night, the atrium was quiet. The heart sticker still clung to the old safe, now displayed in a remembrance corner. Jaden, in a white shirt, bow tie he tied himself, ran up, touched the sticker. "Mom, one day I'll be a lawyer. I'll defend those who are called invisible." Diana stroked his hair. "If you straighten arguments the way you once straightened bills, the court will listen." When the lights went out, Thomas lingered alone. He looked at the lobby's board, numbers that spoke. He remembered a long-ago second, breath held as a child's hand hovered near money. Now, he no longer waited for any child's hand to be tested. Justice had a path, children had a future, and whenever someone asked what changed your life, Thomas answered, a small act by a boy, and the resolve of adults to ensure that act would never be forgotten. Outside, the city turned as always, but inside Mitchell Enterprises, an order had set. No one called invisible. From the day that safe stood open, every decision had been measured against a child's simple but perfect question. If no one's watching, would I still do it? That was the legacy and the reminder of Jaden Jefferson, 10 years old, once wearing pink gloves now outgrown, but never outgrowing his principles. The season of the annual shareholders' meeting arrived, carrying the smell of early coffee and thick agendas. Mitchell Enterprises entered its 4th year after the Rolex night with clean metrics. The invisibility index cut in half, fair chance touching over 600 families, and complaint resolutions nearly perfect on time. Thomas Mitchell intended this meeting to close the books on an era. But at 7:12 a.m. that morning, his phone buzzed relentlessly. The communications team forwarded a link from an anonymous account posting a clip. HR director caught pocketing a watch. Exposed. The profile photo. A half-black, half-white mask. The video lasted 23 seconds. The frame resembled an old hallway camera. Diana Jefferson, bending down, her hand sliding into a drawer, slipping a shiny object into her coat pocket. Caption, "The Hypocrite." Comments swarmed. So, she was a thief. Oscar-winning actress. Fresh accounts piled on, tagging fair chance and minority favoritism. Sandra Miller convened an emergency call. Her voice was taut. "This footage doesn't line up." But public sentiment doesn't wait for forensics. Marcus Chen was already at his rig, pulling the clip into a frame-matching program. "Shadow mismatch," he said after 40 seconds. Her shadow falls opposite to the hallway lights. Time code skips, frame tampering. halo artifact around the shiny object. Classic compositing. Thomas pressed each word. Source? Domain created 48 hours ago. Routed through 3 proxies. Prepaid card topped up at a convenience store. Marcus replied. But anyone with eyes can see this is a deep fake. Spliced from last year's hallway feed with a new object layered in. The problem wasn't just technical. By 9 a.m., PR flagged a red zone. 2 investor funds demanded time on the agenda to ask about the risk of diversity policies covering misconduct. The stock dipped 1.7% in pre-market trading. The CFO stayed calm but admitted, if we let it drift today, it becomes the narrative. Thomas checked his watch. 6 hours until the AGM. He decided. We open the meeting. We turn this crisis into a public lesson. Sandra nodded. We protect the victim with data. Marcus added, and dissect the deepfake on camera so next time dirty tricks lose ground. 1 p.m., the AGM hall opened its live stream. Operational updates flew by. In the open Q&A, Thomas raised the deepfake issue before anyone else could. He played 2 clips. 1, the fake 23-second video. 2, the original hallway feed from the same day and angle with no object drop. Marcus took the stage, pointing out each flaw. Shadow misaligned, halo glow, non-linear time jumps, edge breakage at 0.75x speed. He zoomed in on the scan marks embedded every 15 seconds by the company's servers for custody assurance, absent in the fake. A shareholder asked, I don't get the tech. Bottom line, why should I trust you? Thomas didn't mince words. Because we present the originals with timestamps, hashes, and independent custody logs, and because we invited an external forensics firm in the next room to audit live, results will be public, even if unfavorable. Sandra took the mic. I know that video stabs emotion, fast and raw, but our policy is no one gets judged by blur. Today, we show you why slow process is sometimes the fastest road to truth. Next, a hard-nosed fund rep asked, Don't your diversity models open doors for abuse? Thomas nodded. We ask that same question every quarter, through numbers. Here are before and after blind review stats, voluntary turnover, P&L contributions by team, disciplinary complaints. No evidence of reverse bias. In fact, diverse teams cut errors by 12% and sped product to market by 9%. We're not doing charity. We're building a system that's both effective and fair. Marcus raised his hand. We've completed the trace. The deepfake came from a shell PR firm buying ad accounts offshore. Domain registered by an individual who was a subcontractor under Richard Blackwood 3 years ago. We've filed with cybercrime police and submitted DMCA takedowns. The room buzzed, then fell silent. Thomas closed. Anyone can be fooled in 23 seconds. That's why we need 23 months, or 23 quarters, to build foundations where those 23 seconds can't take root. Today, we're opening the full case archive to independent auditors, an open evidence vault, for any investor, journalist, or employee to examine. The meeting ended with a resolution. Approve the Evidence Vault Plan and codify deepfake response into corporate tech ethics policy. The stock recovered by close. That night, CNN's Michael Torres ran the headline, From Digital Trap to Transparency by Design. Late at night, Diana and Jaden stood by the Remembrance Corner, where the old safe sat. The heart sticker still glowed. Jaden asked, Is Mr. Thomas sad they faked you, Mom? Diana smiled thinly. Do you think he's afraid? Jaden shook his head. I think he chooses right, even when afraid. Diana stroked his hair. Then so will we. Thomas stood a few steps away, overhearing. He knew the traps weren't only in cart drawers anymore. They could live inside 23 seconds of video. But, as on that long-ago night, the story always returned to order. Straighten the small to straighten the large. Bring evidence into light so truth shines bright enough to see. The next morning, the independent forensics team confirmed Marcus's findings. The anonymous account vanished, the domain taken down. But the company preserved everything, to teach the next onboarding class a new lesson. 23 seconds can deceive, but 23 principles will keep order straight. Another year passed. Mitchell Enterprises had just undergone an independent audit of its Justice by Design framework. The 120-page report was not only praise, it also highlighted a fragility point. Reliance on a single leader at the top. If Thomas leaves, will the model endure? Thomas Mitchell read that line and smiled. He had already prepared his answer. At the company-wide assembly, Thomas stepped onto the stage alongside Sandra Miller, Marcus Chen, Diana Jefferson, and the young CFO Liam Carter, who would take over as CEO in 6 months when Thomas transitioned to non-executive chairman. Thomas spoke directly. The question of durability is fair. Today, we hand over not by one man's will, but by codified rules. The screen behind him lit up with 4 locks. Charter, codifying the bad actor clause, the open evidence vault, the tech ethics. Committee and the invisibility index into the bylaws, changeable only by supermajority, board plus employee reps. Budget lock-in, fair chance, and the Employee Children's Scholarship Fund Maid. Permanent budget lines, 1% of pre-tax profit, auto-allocated at year's start. Cuts require 2 rounds of votes. Regular transparency. Each quarter the company publishes D&I dashboards, hotline, stats, complaint resolutions, and anonymous discipline audits. Succession and peer oversight. Sandra and Diana co-chair the Culture Council, empowered to veto HR policy changes that break the charter. Marcus becomes full-time data and evidence security advisor. The applause was steady, not explosive, the heartbeat of a system. After the meeting, Jaden, now 11, taller, still keeping his pink gloves in his desk drawer as a keepsake, was invited to speak at Family Day. He stepped to the mic, shy, then steady. I once told Mr. Thomas 4 things. Don't take what isn't yours. If it's messy, tidy it. Tell the truth, even if no one listens. Protect others when they're alone. I think adults can use those too. The adults laughed, not at naivete, but at how true those 4 were. Harder than any policy if not lived daily. A month later, the Jaden Jefferson Education Fund announced its first cohort, 22 college scholars, each with a story of resilience and a pledge of community service. Diana, now Vice President of People and Culture, congratulated them, reminding them the scholarships were not charity, but investment in a shared future. Across town, Richard Blackwood worked selling cars at a small used lot, his online profile tagged reputation risk. Asked anonymously by a reporter, "Do you regret?" Richard was silent for long seconds, then said, "I was late to what's right." The words spread faintly, then vanished. No one needed gloating. Real justice isn't trampling the fallen, but stopping others from stumbling on the same stone. Mitchell Enterprises had become a destination for law, business, and data science students. On tours, they paused at the Remembrance Corner. Guides explained, "This safe was once bait, now it's proof of order." The heart sticker was placed by a boy to remind us, metal is cold, principle is warm. It depends on what we put inside. On Liam Carter's first day as CEO, the quarterly report bore a new line. The Mitchell Standard, an open framework of ethics clauses, open evidence vault, transparency metrics, deepfake forensics guides, free for any business to download. "We don't copyright justice," Liam said at the press conference. "We share it so it spreads faster than lies." Michael Torres interviewed Thomas again, opening with, "If you could erase the open safe moment from history, would you?" Thomas thought, "I would change it to 2 cups of tea and a conversation on trust with a boy. But since I failed, I made my mistake part of the bylaws, so no one repeats my path of testing a child." That night, the atrium was quiet, the hum of HVAC soft. Diana stood with Thomas before the old safe. She said, "I once thought justice was the moment the cuffs clicked. Now I see. It's everything after. Bylaws, processes, scholarships, handovers." Thomas nodded. "In the days with no headlines, because the system runs right." Through the glass, they saw Jaden debating with friends for class. Should schools have library cameras? He quoted the Tech Ethics Committee, using grown-up language, but with a child's soul. Cameras protect, not intimidate. In the quarter-end email, Thomas wrote briefly, "No flourish." The first day of this story was an open safe. The last day, if there is one, will be when we no longer need the safe, because everyone keeps order even when no one is watching. By then, what remains won't be Thomas, Diana, or Jaden, but a standard, no one called invisible. Sunday morning, Jaden helped his mom wipe the kitchen table, pink gloves still fitting. He grinned. "Mom, messy table." Diana pretended to frown. "And what do we do when it's messy?" "Straighten it," Jaden said firmly. "And if no one's watching?" He shrugged. "All the more reason to straighten it." Elsewhere in the city, Liam shared the Mitchell standard with a requesting firm. Sandra signed 2 micro-policies suggested by staff. Marcus updated the deepfake module for new hire training. Diana approved the mentor list for the next scholarship cohort. Everything carried on, quietly. The story began with a boy before an open safe. It ends, if it can be called an end, with a charter kept by many. In between were sweaty meetings, transparent dashboards, and choices to do right when it was easier to look away. And each time a newcomer entered the lobby, seeing the heart sticker on the old safe, they read the small plaque beneath, proposed by Jaden Jefferson himself. "If no one is watching, will you still do right?" That isn't just a question for Mitchell Enterprises. It's an invitation to anyone holding a key, whether to a vault, a boardroom, or the hand of someone once called invisible. So, what do you think the greatest lesson of this story is? The power of honesty, or the responsibility of adults when holding power? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read them. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that inspire and challenge.
you.